Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, ho, 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 ho. A lot of news is being made on Trump's trip to Asia. Look, let me just say this. He's only 9 months into his second term. He's still got, 3 years and a couple months to go. But already now, there is huge buzz. I'm talking story after story after story that maybe, just maybe, President Trump may go for a third term in 2028. And the reason why this has now become such a massive story is because Steve Bannon, who, as you know, I follow, I wouldn't say regularly, but I do follow him. He is a former Trump advisor, served in Trump's first term for a while, and of course is a key ally and supporter of the president. Bannon, in a recent interview with The Economist magazine, a British weekly magazine, said that Trump will run in 2028, that in fact, according to Bannon, he needs to run in 2028, that the Trump MAGA revolution is not finished. It's not over. There's a lot more work to do, and that to really drain the swamp and break the back of the establishment, Trump has to go for an unprecedented third term. And what got everybody talking is that Bannon said, this is what he claimed, that he was talking to people inside the White House. Now, he didn't say Trump, but he said people around Trump, people inside the White House, and quote unquote, plans are underway to make that happen, i.e., to make him run in 2028. And so that set off, as you can imagine, a media firestorm, not just from the corrupt corporate media, but from conservatives, from independents, from Trump supporters, all across the country now. There is a massive buzz. Everybody is talking. Should Trump run in 2028? Will Trump run in 2028? Can he constitutionally run in 2028? Listen now to President Trump. He's on his way in this clip. He's landed now in Japan, obviously. And he's meeting with the Japanese Prime Minister. But on his way to Japan on Air Force One, right away, the first question was about Bannon and whether Trump will seek a potential third term in 2028. Is this something Trump is willing to do? Because he'd have to take it to the Supreme Court. Listen now to get their okay. Listen now to Trump's response. Roll cut one, a mic.
Sir, Steve Bannon said in a recent interview that there could be plans for you to be able to run and potentially win a third term in 2028. Is that something you'd be willing to challenge the court to be?
Well, I haven't really thought about it. We have some very good people, as you know. But I have the best poll numbers I've ever had. I mean, I just solved 8 wars and a 9th is coming. I believe Russia, Ukraine will happen.
So he's asked, there's a lot of talk. Steve Bannon brought it up. There's a plan underway for you to able to run and potentially win a third term in 2028. The audio wasn't the best, so let me just quickly regurgitate what was said. And is this something you'd be willing to challenge at the court to be able to do? And you heard his response. And he says, I really haven't thought about it. We've got some very good people. And look, I got great poll numbers though, meaning wink, wink. If I wanted to run again, I think I'd win. And then he's going on about how, he's a peacemaker. He's just settled 8 wars. He's looking to settle the Russia-Ukraine war. And, so that didn't quite close the door. If you noticed, he didn't quite close the door. Now, there are several issues with Trump running in 2028. Number one, and of course the biggest hurdle, is the 22nd Amendment, which was passed after FDR's death, which term limits a president to 2 terms. 8 years, period, full stop. If you're elected, 2 elected terms. Technically, if you're the vice president, say the president dies in the middle of the term, you can serve out that term and then still win 2 other terms. But you can only serve 2 elected terms. So that's the 22nd Amendment. Now, it's very hard to get over the 22nd Amendment. Frankly, I don't see how Trump could do it. Let's just play it out. Even if he wanted to run in 2028, the 22nd Amendment would be a massive legal obstacle. Now, what the option is, there's really 2 options. Number 1, change the constitutional amendment. In other words, you have to have another constitutional amendment to replace the 22nd Amendment, which would allow, say, a president to serve 3 terms. In fact, Congressman Andy Ogles is pushing this very idea in Congress for Trump. Let a president have a 12-year, the ability to serve up to 12 years in office. In other words, 3 terms, not 2 terms. But to get that done, you have to get a supermajority in Congress, and you have to get 3/4 of the states to ratify this new amendment, all in time for 2028. It's practically impossible. There may not even be the support for it at that supermajority level, and there certainly isn't the time to do it. So it looks like that option is off the table. The other option is take it to the Supreme Court. Why take it to the Supreme Court? Trump can argue, now I don't know if he would win or prevail, but the argument he could make is that because of what Obama did to him and Hillary Clinton and a Crossfire Hurricane, and how they illegally framed him as an agent of Russia in his first term, and then sicked Robert Mueller on him, that they essentially denied him a proper first term, that they deliberately subverted his first term, undermined his first term, made it almost impossible to truly have a proper first term in office, and so that he should be given another crack at the can because of the illegal criminal abuse of power that was perpetrated against him by Obama, by Biden, by the CIA, by the FBI, by the deep state, and by the Democrats. I don't know if the Supreme Court will say that passes constitutional muster. I'll be honest with you. But that's clearly another option. Now, there is a third option Bannon seems to be floating, and many conservatives and Trump supporters are floating, which is that Trump should run in 2028 as the vice presidential candidate. Let's just say to J.D. Vance, just to make to pick a candidate. So J.D., the heir apparent, runs in 2028 as the presidential candidate or nominee for the Republican Party. Trump runs as his VP. Then when Vance wins, Vance automatically steps aside and says, I'm making way now for the vice president of the United States to now become the president of the United States. And Bannon believes this circumvents the 22nd Amendment. It gets around that legal obstacle. I doubt it. I think the Supreme Court is going to say, no, the 22nd Amendment still applies. You were president for 2 terms. You were elected for 2 terms. You can't be a president for a 3rd term, even if you run as a vice presidential nominee on a presidential ticket. So I don't think constitutionally the Supreme Court will allow it. Now, Trump appears to be shutting down that door for running as the vice presidential candidate. And I'll play the cut after the break where he's asked specifically, well, Bannon is saying you could run as VP and then, your ticket wins And then if it's Vance or Rubio or whoever is the presidential candidate and wins, just they step aside and say, okay, Mr. Trump, another 4 years for you. And Trump said, that's too cute. I don't like to do it that way. If I'm going to do it, I want to do it on my own. I don't want to be someone's VP. So Trump appeared to have slammed the door shut on that vice presidential option. So the question now is this. Can Trump run for a third term? More importantly, I want to ask you, all of you Trump MAGA, Trump supporters, conservatives, should Trump be able to run for a third term? Would you like to see him? He would be 82 years old. Is he fit enough for the job? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, listen now to Trump. Now, he's been trolling the media and the Democrats now, frankly, for a few months now. He's got all these Trump 2028 caps he's giving out to people. When he met with Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries just before the government shutdown, he had these Trump 2028 caps placed all over the Oval Office on the desk. Schumer and Jeffries, their eyes were popping out of their skull when they saw this. He's a dictator. He's a dictator. So he's been trolling the Democrats, and he's clearly been trolling the media. He's having some fun. But when Bannon gave that interview saying, no, this is more than just trolling. We got a plan. We're going to get him to run in 2028. He has to run in 2028. So he was asked, and he didn't, as I said, he was asked, look, Bannon says people inside your, in your inner circle are working with him to clear the way for you to run for a third term and to have you win in 2028. Now, he didn't quite say no. He just, he was coy. He says, no, we've got good people, as you know. And then he's pressed by reporters saying, well, when you say there are good people that could run in 2028, who do you mean? Well, listen now to President Trump. Roll cut to Mike.
Well, we have great people. I don't have to get into that, but we have one of them standing right here. We have JD, obviously. The vice president is great. I think Marco's great. I think, I'm not sure if anybody would run against us. I think if they ever formed a group, it would be unstoppable. I really do. I believe that. I would love to do it. I have my best numbers ever. It's very terrible. I have my best numbers. If you read it.
So it's a very interesting answer, and I apologize. It's Air Force One. It was on its way to Japan, so the quality of the audio is not the best. But let me just, for those of you that quite couldn't hear everything, he gave a very interesting answer. Number one, standing right behind him was Rubio. Okay, so Rubio was right behind him. And as the question is being asked, Rubio is like shaking his head like, no, please. No, please. He's going to answer it. Please don't answer it. Of course, Trump answers it. And he says, no. He goes, look, we have great people. And then he says, look, I don't want to get into it, but I have one of them standing right here, meaning Rubio. Like, in other words, he'd be a great candidate, presidential candidate in 2028. He then says, well, we have JD, obviously, JD Vance, the vice president. He's great. He says Marco is great. Now, he then says, and this is very interesting, and he's been saying this now for a while. I've noticed now, it's been about a good, 5-6 months. He keeps saying a Vance Rubio ticket. And he said it again. He said they would be unstoppable in 2028. Vance, obviously, as the presidential candidate, Rubio as his VP, as the vice presidential nominee, as the vice presidential candidate, a Vance Rubio ticket, he says, could destroy any Democratic ticket. You put any Democrat up there, they win. So on the one hand, he's basically saying, wink, wink, I'm going to do my 3 years and, do as best I can, obviously, finish out my term. And, I'm riding off into the sunset and I'm passing off the baton and my heir apparents are going to be JD and Rubio. And they're going to carry MAGA for the next 8 years after me. So on the one hand, he's basically saying, no, I'm not going to run in 2028. But then, after he gives that answer, he says, he goes, I think they'd be unstoppable. I really believe that. Then he says, however, I would love to do it. Meaning I'd love to run again in 2028. I have my best numbers ever, meaning I'm riding very high in the polls. The opposition is terrible. He goes, I have my best numbers. So what he's saying is, on the one hand, he's saying, yeah, no, it's going to be JD and Rubio. I think they'd be unstoppable. I'm going to, I'm going to stand aside in 2028 and I'm not going to run. They're going to run. They're going to carry on my legacy, my MAGA revolution. But on the other hand, he's like, boy, I really would like to run though. I got great numbers. I could win. I could win easy. So notice, the door's closed. No, it's not closed. The door's closed. No, it's not closed. Now, he's then asked, well, would you run as the vice presidential candidate? This is Bannon's theory now. Run as a vice presidential candidate, say to, I don't know, Vance or Rubio, whoever. And then if they win, they step aside right away. And then you then elevate yourself to become the next president in 2028. And maybe that can get around the 22nd Amendment. Trump does shut the door on that. Listen to Trump. Roll cut 3, Mike.
One theory on how you might try to serve a third term is that you could run as the vice president.
Yeah, I'd be allowed to do that.
Is it the White House or the White House counsel or your legal position?
No, you'd be allowed to do that, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't do it. I think it's too cute. Yeah, I would rule that out because it's too cute. I think the people wouldn't like that. It's too cute. It's not. It wouldn't be right.
So he's saying that Trump is arguing that he has the right to do that. The reporter says, well, have you run that by the White House counsel? Your lawyers. And he says, no, they say legally I could, if I wanted to do it, I could do it. But he goes, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that. It's too cute. So they say, the reporters right away say, so you're ruling that out? He goes, oh yeah, no, I'm ruling that out because it's too cute. I don't think the people, i.e. the voters, would like that. It's just too cute. It's not right. So he's basically saying, I'm not going to do the Bannon theory. I'm not going to run as somebody's VP. And then, right after the election, they step aside and I become the president. No. If I do run in 2028 for an historic, unprecedented third term, since the 22nd Amendment was passed, after FDR died, I want to do it on my own, as the flag bearer, as the presidential candidate. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, it's one of the biggest stories, not just in the country, but in the world. After Steve Bannon's explosive interview with The Economist magazine, not only that the fact that he's a Trump supporter and a former advisor, top advisor to Trump, but that he says Trump should definitely run for a third term in 2028. It's that Bannon then came out and said in the same interview, I'm talking to people, not with Trump, but people around Trump, his inner circle, and we have a plan. And we're going to make it happen. He can and he will run and win in 2028 for a third term. We're going to get around the 22nd Amendment. And that now has set off an absolute firestorm. Trump, by the way, I think politically he's handling this brilliantly because all of this talk of whether he'll run again for a third term. Remember, one of the problems of a president in his second term is they become quickly a lame duck because the focus is always, well, who's going to be his successor? Who's going to be the one coming after him? So after a while, it's hard to keep the attention on you. Well, what he's doing now brilliantly by playing this sort of Hamlet, should he not, will he not? He loves J.D. Vance and Rubio. It's an unstoppable ticket. But on the other hand, boy, he'd love to run himself in 2028. It keeps the attention on Trump, not on JD, not on Rubio, not on who his potential successors or heirs could be, but squarely on Trump. He's the center of the Republican Party. He's the center of the administration. He's the one that sets and dictates the tone and the terms of his administration. And that, by the way, is a deliberate strategy on his part. And I got to tell you, it's a masterful strategy. So I think politically, he's handling this extremely well. Now, what is fueling a lot of Trump supporters, and I wouldn't say it's a majority, from the reaction I'm getting, the text line, it's 45% want him to run for a third term. 55% of Kuhner country don't want him to run for a third term. So I would say MAGA is split. But that 45% is being fueled by several things. One of them, and I want to play this cut. If you remember, a couple shows ago, I talked about James Carville. And Carville, speaking for many liberals and many Democrats, said, I can't wait to get back to power in 2028. Because if we take back the White House, he goes, I swear to you, and I've spoken to many Democrats, and they're telling me the same thing, we are going to go after, quote unquote, collaborators of the Trump administration. We are going to arrest them. We are going to parade them down Pennsylvania Avenue. We're going to have people come out and spit on them, like the collaborators in France when the Nazis were finally expelled from France after D-Day. How many of those who collaborated with the Nazis had their heads shaved and they were publicly shamed and disgraced. He said the exact same thing is going to happen. We're going to shave their heads. We're going to parade them. We're going to throw tomatoes at them. We're going to spit at them. We're going to pursue them. We're going to charge them. We're going to lock them up. We're going to harass them. It's going to be all-out lawfare. And so you have a lot of Trump supporters now saying he's got to run for a third term because the Democrats are openly calling for massive retribution against people who worked for Trump and people who supported Trump. So listen now to Scott Adams. Now, he is a comedian. Take it with a bit of a grain of salt, but still, he's speaking. He's a conservative comedian, a Trump supporter, but he is, and it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but he is speaking for many in the MAGA movement, in the America First movement, saying we can't afford not to have Trump run in 2028. Roll cut 16, a mic.
James Carville, if that's what you're really promising us, if you're promising us that you and your clan are going to come after Trump collaborators and you're not going to define in advance what a collaborator is, well, you just flipped me to a third term. I'm going to make the change right now. As long as this is talking like this, I'm in favor of a third term. If you can calm down this, I'll be on your side. No third terms for anybody. That's where I was 10 minutes ago. Now I'm looking at this and I'm saying, you. If you're going to give this vague threat that when Trump leaves, people like me are going to be victimized, yeah, we're going to go for a third term. And that's on you. That's all on you. Because I was absolutely 100% against a third term until right now.
So there you go. And it got a visceral reaction among a lot of people. Look, let me be brutally honest with you like I'm in the confessional. And I say this with all due respect to Scott Adams. They're not going to come after you, but they're going to come after people like me. When Carville talks about quote-unquote collaborators, he's talking about people like me. He's talking people like Tucker Carlson. He's talking people like Laura Loomer. I could go on and on. Well, they may go after him. You're right. He is a public cartoonist, so they may go after him. But what I'm saying is, look, I know that Carville's going to, I know the Democrats are coming after me if Trump wins. Sorry, if Trump serves out his second term and the Republicans lose in 2028 and the Democrats take back power. There's no question. I get the hate mail. They keep telling me over and over again, we're coming for you. We're coming for your wife. We're coming for your children. We're coming for your family. You Nazi scumbag. And that's the least of it, is not calling me a Nazi scumbag. So I know that I'm out on a limb backing Trump. I know that. Now, I still, my honest opinion, no. I'm against Trump running for a third term. Would I think he'd be a great president? Of course. But number one, he's still got over 3 years to go. Like, honestly, I think we're just jumping the gun. How's he going to be in 3 years? It's an exhausting, draining, grueling job. So it's one thing 9 months into a second term. Talk to me when you're 82 years old, 3 years from now. So number one, I think it's way too premature. My honest answer. Number two, I'm sorry. The 22nd Amendment is the 22nd Amendment is the 22nd Amendment. And it's there for a reason. FDR was a disaster in his third and fourth term. And look, yes, it's tempting to say, let's go for it with Trump. But what happens if the Democrats take back power? Can you imagine Obama with a third term? I mean, his own third term? In other words, or a Democrat, a very bad Democrat? And to give them 12 consecutive years? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, look, you know where the Kuhner man stands. And look, let me just say this. I think politically it's brilliant on his part to keep saying, oh, I may run, I may not run. I think that's exactly how you keep all the attention on Trump and not become a lame duck. So I think it's brilliant. I love it how he's trolling the Democrats. I love it how the media and the Democrats are melting down. I would say you just keep doing this for years and years for most of the rest of his second term. I don't know. I would, if I ran, I'd win. That's for sure. Oh, my poll numbers are great. To me, you have to keep the Democrats on defense. I think there's no question. Now, if you're asking me, Jeff Kuhner, my opinion, no, I don't think he should run for a third term. Now, do I think he would be a great third term president? Probably. I've never seen a guy his age with that kind of energy and vigor. I mean, look at him. He's just flying all over Asia, working 18, 20-hour days. He's practically 80 years old. So if anybody can be 82 and have an incredibly successful third term, it's Trump. There's no question. And I agree with Bannon up to a point. The MAGA revolution has to continue. It can't just end with Trump, when he finishes his term in 3 years. But where I part ways with Bannon is, number one, I'm sorry, I think the 22nd Amendment is crystal clear. You can change the Constitution. You can, pass a constitutional amendment. It's very hard. You need 2/3 supermajority in Congress, 3/4 of the states. And I don't think there's the support for that. And I don't even think there's the time for that by 2028. So to me, presidents are term limited. And look, I can just tell you this. FDR in his third and fourth terms was such a disaster. We had a Cold War because of FDR. He sold out Eastern Europe to Stalin at Yalta. He was clearly too old, too sick. He kept it from the American people, and his people did as well. His handlers and the media who colluded with him. And it took us 45 years to undo that mistake. So, no, I believe in term limits for members of Congress. I believe in term limits for senators. I believe in term limits for judges. And I certainly believe in term limits for presidents. I support the 22nd Amendment. And again, I say this to everybody. Don't think you'll be in power forever. What happens when the whip is on the other hand? and you got a very bad Democrat president, 2 terms is a check. You start playing around, well, maybe 3 terms or 4 terms, the damage that they can do is immeasurable. And this would be my final argument. Agree, disagree. JD's been an incredible vice president. I mean, even Trump himself repeatedly says the guy's great. I couldn't have asked for more. And Trump further says, and he's right, a Vance Rubio ticket would be unstoppable. Personally, I prefer a Vance Tulsi Gabbard ticket. Okay? But let that go. The point being, you've got your heir apparent. You've got, as they say in football, after, the starting, the quarterback is getting a little old, and you've got the next guy. You've got the next guy. I mean, JD is America First MAGA to his core. He is polished. He's articulate. He's brilliant. He's going to have tremendous executive experience by the time 2028 rolls around. He's been incredibly loyal to Trump. He's been involved in every aspect of Trump's presidency. Domestic, dealing with Congress, foreign affairs, immigration. In other words, he's got on-the-job training. He's ready to go. And look, I prefer Gabbard over Rubio. But I've got to say, I'm sorry, I have to call it the way I see it. I think Trump is right. I think Rubio has been a very effective Secretary of State. And I think the two of them together would be a juggernaut. So if you've got, you've set it up now to hand off the baton. So you've got 3 years to go. You can do so much more. And then to me, that's also the sign of a great leader, is you develop a deep bench, and then it's time to pass it on to your heir apparent. And they continue your legacy. And so I think all the pieces are there. Why would you threaten to blow all that up? Here, say you run JD, just to play out the scenario, and you become his vice presidential candidate, which Trump has said he won't, but let's just play out the scenario. So we're going to burn JD like this? Like, think about it from JD's point of view. So I'm in the salt mines. I'm working insane long days. I'm backing you to the hilt. I'm going to run. I'm going to campaign. I'm going to be at the top of the ticket. And then I just stand aside and you become president again? And basically that's it. I'm done. You've thrown me to the curb. And I don't think the American people would like it. I don't think even many Republicans and many Trump supporters would like it. They think it's unfair to JD, because it is unfair to JD. So to me, no. He's got 3 years, 3 months. There's still a lot of work for him to do. When he's done in 2028, salute. Pass it on to JD and Rubio or whoever runs with JD on his ticket. And let's keep this baby going for another 8 years. But that's me. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is a very interesting point from Mark on Messenger. Jeff, it's true. I didn't think of it this way, but it's true. Jeff, what would the Democrats do if Trump attempted to run for a third term? You think we're hearing dictator and king now? Oh my God. The Democrats will completely lose their minds. And although I would love to see it, after all, Jeff, if a senator or a congressman can keep running, why not a president? Plus, Jeff, I don't think JD would step aside if he won the presidential election and then make Donald Trump the president. And I don't think Trump would do that anyway. Well, he wouldn't. That's why he shot that down, saying, no, I'm not going to run as somebody's VP. And then ask that person to, hey, go, okay, retire now. Go home. And I'm going to take over. He goes, that's, as he put it, that's too cute. It's not honorable. And I would never do that to whoever the nominee is and to the American people. So if Trump says, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, straight up. I'm running. Here's why I'm running. And I'm going to take it to the courts and see if the courts will allow me. Now, personally, I think that would feed into the narrative that Trump is a king and a dictator because of the 22nd Amendment. And if we didn't have a deep bench, because I understand what Scott Adams is saying, I'm telling you, believe me, I really understand. I don't want to be paraded down Pennsylvania Avenue. I don't want to have my head shaved off. I don't want to be thrown in some dungeon because I dared to support Donald Trump. I don't want to be spit on and had tomatoes thrown at me and be hounded and harassed and persecuted and hunted down. So I get where Scott Adams emotionally is coming from. But we've got the perfect guy to replace Trump. So, we got a very deep bench. So we don't need to do this. But again, that's me. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. Of course, you can disagree with the Kuhner man. I want to hear all points of view on this. So let me ask you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day. Sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. Should President Trump run for a third term in 2028? A, yes. B, no. I want to hear from you. I want to hear both sides, frankly, because MAGA is split on this and Kuhner Country is split. You can vote on my webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn is in national ER. You can also vote via X, my handle there, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhner, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhner. Jeff in Quincy, you're going to start us off, Jeff. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Boston's bulldozer. How we doing today?
I'm good, Jeff.
Right.
How are you? Should Trump?
When it comes to
Jeff, Trump 2028. You like? You don't like?
I think the 22nd Amendment has to be changed to include the Congress and the House and the Senate. They all need term limits. Enough is enough. We need to fix the voting system in this country. Trump's not going to run. He's 80 years old. The fact that he's trolling him and has him triggered like this is hilarious, much like everything else he does. Obama's basketball court at $400 million is okay, funded by the taxpayer, but yet a ballroom funded by Donald Trump and private entities is not okay. If Democrats didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards at all.
Jeff, I got to ask you, and I agree with you. I think the Senate, the Congress, they all should be term limited. I'm with you all the way, Jeff. Jeff, just to ask you, because of the 22nd Amendment, I agree with you. But just if you could be emperor for a day, if you could just snap your fingers and change the Constitution, would you support Trump running again for a third term? Or do you think really 2 terms is enough? He would be 82. It's time to pass the baton. It's time to give someone else a chance.
2 terms is enough. J.D. Vance is the heir apparent. He has my vote already. I'm with you with Tulsi Gabbard. You stole my thunder on that one. I don't like Rubio. I like him. He's doing okay now, but he changes with the wind. He was in the Gang of 8. Enough is enough. I mean, how much more can these people declare war on us, play these games, and we just sit back complacent and deal with it? The Democrat Party is a domestic terrorist organization. Nothing else, nothing more, nothing less. They're horrible.
Jeff, is your last name Kuhner by any chance? I swear you're like a brother from another mother. I'm like, amen, 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 amen. He's like my lost twin brother or something. Jeff, you hit the nail right on the head. Please, Jeff, call more often, for God's sake. All right, Jeff says no. What say you? 617-266-6868. In fact, let me ask you 2 questions. Number 1, should Trump run for a third term? Would you like to see him run for a third term? And there's many of you that are texting me, yes, I'd love it if you called in. I'd love to hear your arguments. And number two, do you want him to run for a third term? That's a separate issue. You know, you could say, hey, Jeff, I'd love to keep the gravy train going. You know, he's the best of the best. When you have the best of the best, you keep this guy going. But he just, constitutionally, he can't. But I'd love to see it. So, should he? And do you want him? Can he run for a third term? Or do you think he is legally, constitutionally prohibited from doing so? Frank in Hingham. Thanks for holding, Frank, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you very much for taking my call in. Good morning.
Good morning, Frank.
You know what? It's no on all the questions. I don't think he would run again. I don't think he should, even if he could, and he probably could. The Constitution, from what I've seen, is a living, breathing document. It's made to be changed or tweaked here and there, I guess, right? So, I mean, I bet he probably could find a loophole to do so. I would not vote for him if he ran for a third term, and I voted for him twice.
Okay, now why?
Because I believe that the 2 terms limit is enough. As a matter of fact, every politician should suffer the same with a 2-term limit, We don't need career politicians running the country. And that's the problem that we have today. As a matter of fact, it's career politicians. They've made a career out of politics because they really can't live or survive in the private sector, and that's we don't need people like that running the show here. Look what we've got. I think Donald Trump should spend most of his time promoting J.D. Vance. I don't see enough of him. I'd like to see more of him. I'd like to see him every place Donald is, because I think he could be the heir apparent, or he should be. I think he would do a good job for the country, and I think we need to be promoting him now that it's Donald Trump's last term in office.
Frank, by the way, again, you're stealing my thunder. I got to tell you, the audience is stealing my thunder. I am so with you on term limits. It's not even funny. And I think you made your case, I thought, very, very well, really eloquently. Let me ask you this. Do you think at 82, is Trump just too old for a third term? I understand your point about, 2 terms is enough. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And after a while, 2 terms is enough. And you do become a politician after a while. Nobody's immune to it. And our founding fathers kept telling us 2 terms, no more than 2 terms. For George Washington, he said 2 terms is enough. Jefferson, no more than 2 terms. Madison, the founder of our Constitution, 2 terms. So I'm with you all the way. But just as a separate issue, Frank, is 82 just too old to be president? Not that he's not a vigorous man, but to be president, the leader of the free world. I'm just curious. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a great question, Jeff, and I think that it's a subjective one because everybody is different at 82. Joe Biden, no way. The man didn't know where he was. Donald Trump, if he still has everything with him and stuff like that, which he does today, why not? I mean, he's a man of the world. He's a man of experience. It wouldn't change anything, But compare him to Joe Biden in Joe Biden's last years, absolutely not. So, if that makes any sense.
Interesting. Frank, thank you very much for that call. Just let me use a football analogy, okay? Just and get your take on this. Do you remember the last years of Brady here in New England? And he was still very good. One of the, the greatest quarterback that ever played. To me, like Trump is on the verge now of becoming the greatest president we've ever had. And still at the end of his career, one of the top 5, if not top 3 best quarterbacks in the league. So in other words, still playing at an extremely high level. And what did Genius Kraft do? And by the way, the idiots in sports radio, get him out. In the sports media, it's time for Brady to go. We gotta move on. No, we're not gonna. They don't want to pay him $50 million for 2 years, which to me was a steal. And after everything he accomplished for the Patriots and for the fans, like a bunch of Judases, they just cut him loose. Well, Brady showed he could still perform at an elite level, went down to Tampa Bay, won a Super Bowl, and then the following year almost took them to the Super Bowl. They were very close. My point being, you know, if you've got a Tom Brady, and Trump is the Tom Brady of politics, one of the best, if not the best president we've ever had, the way Brady was one of the best, if not the best quarterback that ever played, why push him out? What I'm saying is, if we can get him for another, I'm just throwing it out there. If we can get him for a third term, well, why can't JD wait another 4 years? What I'm saying is, like Brady, if the guy can keep winning, let him keep winning. And that's Bannon's argument. What say you? I'm just curious. 617-266-6868. Harry in Maine. Thanks for holding, Harry, and welcome.
Good morning.
Hi, Harry.
Jeff, I'm with you on the 22nd Amendment. The flip could switch the other way, and where would we be then? So I'm definitely with you on that. I'm a definite no on a third term for President Trump, and I love Trump. But a couple of points. You gave one of the examples that he could pursue potentially, and that was to go to petition the Supreme Court and say that his first term was impeded in such a way that he basically was robbed of it. And to do that, long story short, we all know why. What he should be doing, and I think they're starting to do it, not fast enough in my opinion. I know you feel the same way on this, but he needs to go out after and prosecute all the people that impeded his first term. And that's going to take a lot of time, a lot of litigation. He doesn't need that distraction, but he's got people that can do it, and that's what he should be doing. But what I would say is this. You just made a great point on the Brady analogy, and I say the same thing. Why would you break a win combination? Why wouldn't you let the guy continue to roll and run with the football here? And what I'm saying is Obama did it. Obama just did it. We had 4 years of Biden. None of us, I don't think, believed that Biden ran the presidency of the United States of America, Jeff. The dear leader, as you like to fondly refer to him as, he had a place right down the street. And the records show that he visited the White House numerous times. So, in my opinion, what should happen is pass the baton, give it to Rubio, give it to J.D. Vance, Tulsi Gabbard, all good choices, okay? I think they have strong loyalties to President Trump. I would consider Trump for a position in the cabinet. And you know what? I'll tell you this. That would probably be problematic because it still has to go through Congress. So I got one even better. Put him in a position as a special advisor, someone like a Steve Miller that doesn't have to go through Congress. And just keep a hot seat for him, keep it warm at the White House, and just have him come in, as he pleases. He'll be 82 years old. Let him enjoy life. But you know what? There's no reason why he couldn't be even more effective in helping either J.D. Vance, whoever succeeds him, if Obama could do it for 4 years with Biden.
That's
and you
eliminate
point. All this stuff about the look and the feel of a dictator.
Oh, Harry, that's a brilliant point. That's a magnificent point. And look, that's what Donald Trump Jr. is saying. Remember, Don was the one who went to his dad and said, you got to put JD on the ticket. And Trump is like, really? He goes, oh, you got Dad, he's you. He's a junior version of you. I mean, not your personality, but your core convictions. And they have become now extremely close, JD and Trump, very close. And look, you don't have to even have him at the White House. I mean, just, a phone call, Mar-a-Lago. In other words, JD is going to be relying on Trump for his entire 8 years. Let's say he wins 2 terms. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, it's the question everyone, and I mean everyone, is asking. Should President Trump run for a third term? Yes, no, what say you? Audience is on fire today. This is from Charles on Messenger, and he makes a very interesting point. Jeff, when you start messing with constitutional amendments, you're just asking for trouble. what other constitutional amendments would then be looked at to change? The First Amendment? Maybe the Second Amendment? Where would it end? Very good point. In other words, they'd have to change the 22nd Amendment for Trump to run for a third term. And do we really want to do that? That's a very good point. This is from John. And I think, and this is something Sandy and I were talking about off air, during the break. Jeff, without doubt, President Trump's influence will be ever present in a J.D. Vance presidency. President Trump will be the consigliere of the Vance presidency. His unerring influence will remain. As Rush Limbaugh used to say, don't doubt me on this. You know, it's funny you should use the term consigliere because Sandy said, you know, the way you make it seem at the end from that last caller, almost as if JD would be a puppet president with Trump pulling the strings behind the background. And, you know, she made the point, and it's a very good point. If that's the case, that's not a president I want. I want a president who's going to be his own man, who has his own mind, who has his own character, who's certain of his own decisions, who wants to take the country in a decisive direction. I don't want essentially another Biden who's just going to be, you know, at the mercy of somebody yanking his chain a la Obama. And I'm like, well, if I made that sound like that, then I misspoke. No, I think clearly JD would be his own man. He should be his own man. By the way, he and Trump are ideological soulmates. So I think on all the key issues, they agree. But what I said to Sandy was, I said, no, it's like The Godfather. You know, if you remember the first one, where the son, Michael Corleone, the heir, eventually becomes the Godfather. But who does he keep as his top consigliere? The Marlon Brando character, the Don. Because he says, look, who's a better advisor than the Don? I mean, he's older now, doesn't have the quite same vigor and energy like he used to. But if I need advice, if I need to, you know, call upon someone's wisdom and experience, who better than him? And, you know, and what I was telling Sandy was, by the way, it's not just, you know, JD calling Trump. Presidents, if they're smart, and will call other presidents for advice. There's nothing wrong with that. For example, Reagan called Nixon often. Clinton called Nixon often, especially when it came to issues like Russia and China. Now, it doesn't mean, you know, you just, you know, like a poodle, you obey everything a former president says. But both Reagan and Clinton said over and over again, his breadth of knowledge, his experience, the people that he knows there, the command of that country and what's happening there. He goes, I'm just taking notes. And I'm like, this, you know, thanks. You know, half an hour, 45 minutes on the phone. And he goes, you have no idea. His counsel was invaluable. So what I'm saying is, long story short, I could see J.D. Vance honestly calling Trump Mar-a-Lago and saying, you know, hey, Donald, what do you think I should do here? You know, or I'm inclined to do this, but what say you? You know, or, well, look, you know Xi better than anybody. Say Xi Jinping is still in power. You know, I'm thinking of countering China with A. Should I do A or do you recommend B? Or whatever. So what I'm saying is, it's not like Trump is just going to disappear in 2028. So what I'm saying is, you groom an heir, let him be the heir. It's, to me, it's almost part of your greatness as a president. A great president is not just successful in his 2 terms, but it's also the person that he basically ushers in after him, who, you know, he anoints his successor. And I've got to tell you, from everything I've been reading, everything I've been seeing, everything I've been hearing, and Trump himself keeps saying this over and over again, he goes, I couldn't ask for a better VP, a vice president than JD. He's great. He says it. He goes, I give him everything. What's his portfolio? Everything. Why? Because he's a workhorse. He delivers and delivers and delivers. So what I'm saying is, after a certain point, you're the king. You've done your job. You've rescued and saved the country. Now let someone else build upon your achievements. And look, I like Gabbard more than Rubio for the exact same reason previous callers have said. I've never trusted Rubio since the Gang of Eight. But on this point, Trump is right. A Vance-Rubio ticket, unstoppable. I don't care who the Democrats put up. I don't care. Take your pick. Pick anybody you want. Gavin Newsom, Pete Buttigieg, Michelle Obama. Put up anybody you want. A Vance-Rubio ticket is a political juggernaut. It would be an effective third Trump term. To me, we're going to have Trumpism without Trump. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, should Trump run for a third term? Do you think he will run for a third term, or do you think he's just trolling the Democrats and the media? And by the way, they are melting down. Oh, I mean, the way he's playing, footsie with them. Oh, JD and Rubio, oh my God, they'd be, the dynamic duo. Nobody could beat him. Nobody could beat him. Nobody. But on the other hand, boy, I'd love to run. And they're like, he's a dictator. So, I mean, he's playing them beautifully. And let me just say this, because I know I'm getting the texts. I'm getting the emails. Nobody's called in yet. I want to hear from people who would like to see Trump run for a third term. And I won't be hostile. I promise. I'll be very nice and respectful. I just want to hear your argument. To me, the strongest argument, at least for me, and the one I'm very sympathetic to. Now, I'm a constitutionalist, so the 22nd Amendment applies. So I'm a no on a third term. But the argument that they basically robbed him of his first term, which they did. And so because of that, and only because of that, he should get a chance to run for a third term. In other words, he really didn't have a first term. And so, if the Supreme Court blesses it, there's a legal opinion or a legal ruling, then he can run again for a third term. To me, I'm sympathetic to that argument. Now, is he going to get that ruling? I doubt it. And I still think that's, to me, what's incredible about Trump. Look at how much he succeeded in his first term, despite all the subversion, despite all the conspiracy against him, and how hard they undermined him. And then they tried to put him in jail, and then they tried to bankrupt him, and then they tried to keep him off the ballot. And they waged lawfare against him and they stole the election from him. And when everything they did to him while he was out of power. And then he comes back again. And within 9 months, he's like a force of nature. He's done more in 9 months than most presidents have done in an entire term. Objectively. And he's in Asia now, and he's racking up deal after deal. And the big one may be on Thursday with Xi Jinping. Apparently now, what both sides are saying, both Trump's people and Beijing, is that they're very close to an historic trade deal. So if he pulls that off, holy shamoly. I mean, the stock market is going to boom. So it's incredible what he's managed to achieve. It really is. So, but I want to hear from people who think that Trump should run for a third term. I'd love to hear your arguments and why. 617-266-6868. Nancy in Framingham. Thanks for holding, Nancy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. The divided states of America because of no term limits with Congress. I'd say no. Why? Roosevelt was Franklin D. Roosevelt was a very likable, very popular, and he was a good president for the first 2 terms that he had in office. The problem you had with the third term, he did a lot of damage, and I think a third term doesn't work well. I would like to see Trump go off of the sunset, but still be around. One can play the game, two can play the game. Look at Obama and how he had a third term. He doesn't need to do that to anyone who becomes like Vance, whoever becomes president in 2028, but be around for a lot of advice and be around for a lot of help underneath, quietly. I think that would be the better way to go. And I think that Congress should be 2 terms. Absolutely. You can't get rid of them. They go in with good intentions and they become very greedy and very wealthy.
Oh, you're right, Nancy. It becomes like a lifetime appointment.
And I don't think we want lifetime appointments. We have lifetime appointments, and that's the problem. If you didn't have lifetime appointments, we wouldn't be in this fix of a divided country that we have now. And Trump has got a lot for the next 3 years to do, and he's got to get rid of every single illegal, whether they committed a crime or they didn't commit a crime. That's the first thing that has to happen, because now you're seeing all these illegals everywhere voting. And that's what's happening in New York. That's what's happening in all your greatest states of the country.
Nancy, you hit the nail right on the head. Nancy, I want to ask you this. I could not agree with you more. Okay, not 100, 1,000%. Let me ask you this. Generally in history, I'm painting with a broad brush. Okay, but so I'm not giving you all the nuances and because I don't want to keep you here forever. But generally in history, there's a rhythm. There's an ebb and a flow. There's a rhythm. You look at Trump. If you ask most of the people, even those who love him and support him, now I love his personality. I love the fact that he plays smash mouth football. I think he's funny. I love how he trolls the media and the Democrats. I think he's hilarious. But a lot of people who support him say, I don't like it. I love his policies. I love his achievements. I don't like his personality. It's too loud. It's too brash. The term they use is, quote, unpresidential. You hear this all the time, even from his own supporters. What you have in J.D. Vance, personality-wise, not the conviction, character, principles, they're the same. But personality is the antithesis of Trump. He's not a smash-mouth football personality. He's not a street brawler. He's presidential. He's polished. He's very intelligent. He's very well-spoken. He's very articulate. So what I'm saying is, it's almost as if, say, the country is a bit fatigued of Trump's personality, not his policies. Well, now you're going to get JD, where he can legitimately go to people and say, look, you like Trump's policies? Oh, yeah. You like what he's done to the border? Oh, yeah. Immigration? Oh, yeah. The economy? Oh, yeah. Peace and prosperity? Oh, yeah. Crime? Oh, yeah. That's me. But I'm going to do it in my way. And I'm going to do it in a more genteel, polished way, the way I speak, the way I deliver my remarks. And it's going to have a bit of a soothing influence on the country. So what I'm saying is sometimes you need a certain leader for certain times and a different style of leader for another era. Agree, disagree, Nancy?
Agree with you. I know that he's brash. I know that he's got a big mouth. But however, I love everything he's doing. I think he's funny. I think he's brilliant. He's got it all. The looks, the money, the brains, he's got it. There's no question. I think there's a lot of jealousy because they can't do what he could do. And by the way, he's done more in just, I think the first month that he took office, he did more than any president could do in 8 years.
Nancy, but you're completely right. What I'm going to do, I promise, this week, next week, when we get a bit of a lull in the news cycle, I'm going to go through all of his achievements. I'm going to go through them. I'm going to do a whole monologue, and I'm just going to say, here's what he's done. And I'm telling you, by the time I'm done, people are going to go, oh, my God, OMG. And I'm like, and it's 9 months. You're right. He's done in 9 months what most presidents, weren't able to accomplish in 1 term and some even in 2 terms. The guy is a force of nature. There's just no other way to say it. Nancy, thank you so much for that call. 617-269-9228. 266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me also throw this log on the fire. What do you think of Trump essentially anointing Vance as his heir apparent? Now, he keeps throwing Rubio out there as well, but, it's just a few times now he said this. A Vance-Rubio ticket would be invincible. He said this over and over again, and almost as if it's like, I don't want even a primary. We know who it should be. It should be Vance at the top of the ticket, Rubio number 2. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I don't know if it's the callers or if it's Maestro Mike. I don't know if Mike is just deliberately keeping those that want Trump to serve a third term not on. He's just not putting them on the air, or they're just not calling in. Okay, so I'm just going to assume, because Mike would never do this to me, he would never sabotage me like this. So I'm going to assume that for whatever reason, the 45% of Kuhner country that wants Trump to run for a third term, you're all responding and giving me your opinions via text and email and messenger. But for some reason, you don't want to call in. So let me play Scott Adams. He's a cartoonist, very funny guy, comedian, Trump supporter, America first all the way. And when he heard James Carville, and we played the cut, what was it, I think last week, where Carville said, we're going to take back power in 2028. And I've spoken to many Democrats, and we're going to go after every quote-unquote Trump collaborator, especially those who are leaders, influencers, talk radio hosts, cartoonists like Scott Adams. We're going to shave their heads. We're going to parade them down Pennsylvania Avenue. We're going to spit on them. This is what they did in France after World War II. Those that collaborated with the Nazis, we're going to throw tomatoes at them. We're going to throw them in jail. We're going to persecute them, harass them. We're going to ruin them. Scott Adams said, oh, yeah? Well, you know what? I was for the 22nd Amendment 10 minutes ago. Now, roll cut 16, Mike.
James Carville, if that's what you're really promising us, if you're promising us that you and your clan are going to come after Trump collaborators and you're not going to define in advance what a collaborator is, well, you just flipped me to a third term. I'm going to make the change right now. As long as this is talking like this, I'm in favor of a third term. If you can calm down this, I'll be on your side. No third terms for anybody. That's where I was 10 minutes ago. Now I'm looking at this and I'm saying, you. If you're going to give this vague threat that when Trump leaves, people like me are going to be victimized, yeah, we're going to go for a third term. And that's on you. That's all on you. Because I was absolutely 100% against a third term until right now.
Agree, disagree. Jake in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Jake, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Jake?
Not too bad. If you were to ask me today, I would ultimately say yes. I'd want him to run for a third term.
Oh, my God, Jake. Oh, God bless you. I've been waiting 2 hours for somebody on the other side to call in. Mike! I take it back, Mike. You weren't sabotaging me. I was teasing Mike. Jake, please go ahead. Give me your reasons why. Go.
Yeah, yes. Well, first I want to say let's pump the brakes in his first year, in his second term. You know, the economy's still crap. The deep state hasn't been locked up. The Russia-Ukraine war is still going on, right? Jeff, if he were to get rid of income taxes, which he says he's thinking about doing, I would be like, Epstein. Epstein who? Never heard of the guy. I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, I'm kidding, but I might be able to be bought, Jeff. This Russia-Ukraine war, I want it to end, or I want our involvement to be zero. Just to back away. wipe our hands clean of it. And the deep state, right? I keep hearing that Todd Blanche is a turd in the punch bowl, that he keeps slowing down this process. I mean, I know he's dealing with these corrupt district judges, but I hear he's the one in his administration that's kind of slowing this process. So he's still got a lot of work to do. I mean, I want to be energy independent completely. I want to be food independent. I want all our food to come here. What he's talking about getting beef from Argentina. I mean, what's the quality of that going to be like? I have no idea. I want, full force with RFK and what he's doing. I want all the evidence to come forward on these vaccines. I want our skies to stop being poisoned with these stratospheric aerosol injections. And so there's still so much work to be done, Jeff.
Now, Jake, is your argument, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, you'd like to see a third term because you don't think he can get all of this accomplished by the end of his second term, so he'll need another 4 years after that to finish the Trump revolution. Is that your argument essentially?
Term, yes, just because from what I've seen already from him, who knows what he can get done, in this term with who he's fighting against, and deep state still in power. You have, I'm sure, corrupt people within the FBI and still the CIA, and he's still dealing with these judges. So who knows what he's going to be able to get done in this term? But just from going what he's what he's done and what he's promised, I would ultimately say yes. But
interesting,
like you said, age does come into a factor. That's a big.
Jake, let me ask you two questions. Okay, two questions. Number one, I'm just curious. I want to get your take on this. Is it that you don't trust J.D. Vance to finish what Trump started? Say he doesn't complete. And I love your list. I love your list, and it's a big list, and it's a daunting list. But say he doesn't get everything that you want him to do, and I want him to achieve all of that by the end of his second term. But say he doesn't. Are you saying, Jake, and again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, are you concerned that JD will betray the Trump revolution, or that JD won't finish what Trump started? I'm just curious. In other words, do you think, Jeff, I don't think he is the heir apparent. I think it's Trump and only Trump. And then the second argument that I want to hear from you, Jake, is the 22nd Amendment. How do you get around the 22nd Amendment? Go, Jake.
Well, I don't know if I've seen enough from JD to crown on the next president, Jeff. I mean, I trust him over Rubio. I can tell you that. But to get around the 22nd Amendment, you may have to go to the Supreme Court, like you said. He says he doesn't want to run as vice president, but that's the only avenue I see. And then again, you're probably right as far as not being able to change the Constitution within time during this term. Interesting.
Jake, I'm very happy you called. Really, and I got to say, you've summed up beautifully, and again, eloquently, articulately, I think about 45% of the audience, because the audience and MAGA is split on this. So really, Jake, again, outstanding call. Jake, thank you very much. You see, this is what I'm talking about. You see, when we have a debate and a discussion, how intelligent, how civilized, how articulate it is, compared to when you argue with moonbats and liberals, it's like a different dimension. 617-266-6868. Bob in Raynham. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. How's it going?
Good. How are you, Bob?
Good. I'm going to go at this in a different avenue. I'm wondering if President Trump is getting the topic of term limits on the table so that, when they're so fervently against him running for a third term, he can turn it on them either in the midterms or maybe the next election to say, if it's so bad for me to have all these extra terms, how is it good that you people have all these extra terms, and get the subject of term limits for all? And as a previous caller stated, maybe change the 22nd amendment to include all of these guys, senators, Congress people, because as of yet, I've never heard President Trump speak of term limits. And in my opinion, we really need term limits for all to kind of save the country, really, because they're the kings and queens, not President Trump.
That's an excellent point. It's an angle I didn't even think of. Bob, I love it. Really, I love it. And if that is Trump's strategic thinking, I think it's a masterstroke. And think about it. Look, I know politically, because the White House essentially has admitted this, that, he keeps going on about playing, he's playing cutesy, right? He's playing, Hamlet. Well, should I, shouldn't I? JD's great, Rubio's great, but, I'd love to run. I'd love to run. So, and that keeps all the attention on him. So politically, it's very beneficial for him. But that other angle I didn't even see. That's really 3D chess. And you keep mentioning, and in the media, the Democrats will say 22nd Amendment, you're term limited, you're term limited, you're term limited. And then Trump can do a jiu-jitsu and just say, okay, all right, I'm term limited. But what about you? Like, why do I have to be term limited? And you the swamp? No, you're never term limited? Senators can't serve only 2 terms? I mean, that's 2 6-year terms. That's a lot. Maybe Congress, I don't know if they only serve 2 years. So I don't know if 4 years is fair. So maybe 3 terms, or I guess 4 terms max. But, give them term limits as well. May not have to be, 2 terms. It could be 3 or 4 terms. But basically 6 or 8 years. If you can't get the legislation that you claim you want passed, it's time for someone else. And so I think Trump can then turn around and say, no, okay, you love the 22nd Amendment. I love it too. Let's now expand it. And you're right. If you really want to rein in the swamp, if you want to break the back of the swamp, you have to go term limits. Because it's the power. They just keep voting themselves more money and more power, and they stay in forever, and they never leave. And and then they're in bed with the lobbyists, and they've become a ruling class, which is not what our founding fathers intended. This was supposed to be, you serve your country for a couple of terms, and then you go back to do what you were doing in the private sector. This wasn't supposed to be, as I said earlier, a lifetime appointment where you walk in, you make $100,000 a year or whatever at some job, and, you walk in with a small house and with a high mortgage, and you walk out 50, 60, 70, 80, $100 million. And some of them, like Pelosi, over $400, $500 million. And if you're the Clintons, you're talking $1 billion. So that's not what it was supposed to be about. It's not about coming in there and making yourself, a gazillionaire. What a millionaire. A gazillionaire. Off of the people's back and the fat of the land. So I'm with you, Bob. I think, and by the way, term limits, you want to talk about another 80-20 issue. Term limits, immensely popular. Like, we were talking earlier, well, would there be support to change the 22nd Amendment to allow, say, Trump or anybody to get an extra term, a third term? And there'd be a lot of resistance. I don't know if you can get 2/3 of Congress, 3/4 of the states. Bob, let me tell you what would get 2/3 of Congress and 3/4 of the states in terms of the popular support, and that's term limits. If Trump made that issue front and center, there is 80 to 85% support in the country for term limits for members of Congress. So, you want to dismantle the swamp. You want to drain that swamp. There's no better tool than term limits. So, Bob, if that's Trump's strategy, I think it's genius. Absolute genius. Bob, thank you very much for that call. Really good call. Todd in Cambridge. Thanks for holding, Todd, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. Thanks for taking the call.
My pleasure,
Todd.
Todd.
First of all, term limits, who's chomping at the bit more to get rid of term limits for presidents more than Trump? That would be Obama. So be careful what you wish for. He would be the first one to jump on that boat. And I think he's got a couple more years left of productivity in him than Trump would have. So be careful what we wish for. Second of all, it seems that all the people who support term limits keep voting for the same politicians anyways. So don't just talk about it. Go out and do it. Vote for somebody new this time. But my main point I wanted to talk about this morning was the Republicans have a big problem. We have too deep of a bench. And by that, we have your Tulsi Gabbard, DeSantis, Ted Cruz. We have such a lineup of people that would make good presidential material. I don't want to see a dirty primary that's knocked down, drag out, and people are damaged, even if they become the nominee. So where would you send these other people to? I would send DeSantis to become Secretary of State, and I would set Ted Cruz to the Supreme Court. What do you think about that?
I like both of them. I like DeSantis as Secretary of State. I think it's a very good pick, Todd. And I think Cruz, although he keeps saying he doesn't want it, but he's got a very good legal mind. And I think he's a solid conservative on many, many issues. He is a constitutionalist, a strict constructionist, as they say. I think he'd be amazing on the high court. So I agree with you, Todd. I think there's a lot of talent there. Look, personally, and I don't want to get sidetracked because it's a different discussion. I like J.D. Vance. I've met J.D. Vance. I honestly believe he's the real deal. I think he'd be an incredible president. I think he's been an incredible vice president. I think he and Tulsi Gabbard, I am very, very confident that the MAGA America First movement will live on for 8 years, maybe even 16 years. I could legitimately see Tulsi Gabbard. And you know me, I don't care for racial identity, gender identity. I want the best person for the job. But I truly believe Tulsi Gabbard could be the first female president of the United States. I've met her. I've interviewed her. She's she's a political talent. And she's a woman of real core convictions. She's a patriot. She served in the military. She's the real deal. And what she's done now, remember, Obama is on the ropes because of her. Comey, Brennan, Clapper, the deep state. It's all because of Tulsi Gabbard and all of that classified information that she declassified. And she was under tremendous pressure not to do it, even within the administration. Pam Bondi can't stand her for what she's done. Kash Patel, Dan Bongino. She's made their lives miserable because now they have to put up or shut up. She's the one that walks in the room and she doesn't just talk the talk, she walks the walk. So personally, who would I like to see one heartbeat away from the presidency? It would be Tulsi Gabbard. And, look, Rubio, I think, has been very strong so far as Secretary of State. He's also National Security Advisor. He could stay on as National Security Advisor in an advanced administration. But it seems that Trump, for whatever reason, is really pushing a Vance-Rubio ticket. And I think, Todd, one, he's been impressed by Rubio's loyalty to him so far. And two, and I think there's no question, Rubio is a Latino. And Trump is very shrewd politically. And Latinos now are the fastest voting bloc in the country. They're also now the fastest Republican voting bloc in the country. And so Trump, he plays 3D chess and he's saying, I got Vance, who I know is going to further my legacy. And I got a guy like Rubio, who in the Latino community is a rock star. And so I can really consolidate the Latino vote. Because remember, if they can consolidate the Latino vote, in other words, have Latinos keep voting for the Republicans in the numbers that they did in 2024. Trump is comparing himself to FDR. Privately, I shouldn't be saying this, but Trump doesn't just want to beat the Democrats for 2 terms and save the country, which is, of course, important. He wants a lasting political coalition. He wants something that will last for 16 years, 20 years, 24 years. And that's what FDR did with his New Deal coalition. It lasted decades and decades and decades. It lived way beyond him. That's what Trump wants. Because his fear is, sure, we win a couple of elections, we save the country, then the radical left comes back, and they destroy and undo everything that we've done. So what he wants is, he wants to change the voting patterns of key voting blocks. So now you have a majority MAGA coalition. And the Democrats will be in the wilderness for a generation or 2 generations to come. And so what he's saying in private is, if we win over the Latinos, it's over. I mean, demographically, it's over. The Democrats simply cannot beat us. So that's why, if you want to know why, Jeff, he's always throwing Rubio. That's why he's throwing Rubio. A, he likes what he's doing as Secretary of State. He's a worker, and he's been loyal, and he's been executing what Trump's wanted to a T. But also, he goes, look, the guy kills it in front of Latino audiences. They love him. They love him in Texas. They love him in Florida. They love him in swing states. So he's thinking, I put Vance at the top, Rubio as his number 2. We're looking at 8, maybe 16 years now of MAGA rule. He goes, that will cement all of our achievements. We haven't just saved the country, we've kept it saved. Todd, final word to you. What say you?
I mostly agree with what you just said. I just don't want to see a knockdown, drag-out primary. But on the same token, I agree with Tulsi being a very strong pick. I would just put her third in line, that when J.D. Vance is done after 8 years, then it becomes a Rubio-Tulsi ticket with a Latino and a female. Unstoppable. Keep it going for another 16 years. Thanks for your time, Jeff.
I like the way you think, Todd. You think big, my friend. 617. I'm thinking let's just win 2028 and keep this baby going. Not Kuhner country. You guys are thinking 8 years out, 16 years out, 24 years out. You want to keep this going at 2050. Go big or go home. Lisa in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Lisa, and welcome.
Well, good morning out there, Kuhner country. Hi, Jeff.
Lisa, how are you?
I'm good. So I'm a big fat yes. You know that.
So you'd like to see him run for a 3rd term?
And I'll tell you why. So I have mixed emotions about it. I wish he was younger. Can't change that. But I agree that he really needed the 8 consecutive years. And everything that he's trying to do, he's doing knowing that he's going to be out of office, and the whole world knows it too. So I worry that they're just going to wait him out, right? And then I worry that because he made politics great again. He got everybody who wasn't involved. Whether they love him or hate him, they're paying attention. And the Republicans are such jellyfish to me that I feel like what happens if everybody goes back to living their lives because it's not Trump and they step all over us like they did for the last 60 years. Now, I love JD, and I think he's brilliant, and I think he would do a great job. I just worry that I won't, but I will confess I won't spend my 12 hours a day that I have for the last decade either. Do you know what I mean? So I have very mixed emotions about it.
Interesting. I'm just curious, Lisa, and I think you're onto something. I think there's no question. Look, the magnetism, the charisma that Trump has, nobody has. I mean, that's once in a generation. I mean, I'm just thinking the only one that I can remember would be Reagan. I mean, Reagan had what the French call a je ne sais quoi, an intangible quality. He had this charisma. Now, it's a different charisma. Trump's charisma is different than Reagan's. Kennedy clearly had charisma. FDR, who I can't stand, but FDR clearly had charisma. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I'm going to give the devil his due. Theodore Roosevelt also was a man of force of nature, an incredibly charismatic man, strong man, an impressive man. So we have presidents that come along once a generation. I think you're right. Trump is clearly a generational president, and at a minimum, one of our greatest, maybe even the greatest president we've ever had. I don't think JD, he doesn't have Trump's charisma. There's no question. But he's very smart. He's extremely polished. He's very articulate. And this is what I'm reading, Lisa. And this is why I'm even more of a supporter now of JD than before. The left seems to really fear JD more than anyone else. Rubio doesn't worry them as much. Ted Cruz doesn't worry them as much. DeSantis doesn't worry them. Greg Abbott in Texas. Like all these names that people throw out who could be running in 2028. The one, though, that really scares them, and they even say it. What was it in that podcast where Jen Psaki viciously attacked J.D. Vance's wife? She even said, admitted later, she said, Trump, how did she phrase it? But yeah, there's a big bite, but there's also some bark. What she means by that is, Trump can be a little pragmatic. He's flexible. He can make a deal. But she said, this is what she said, JD's even more hardline than Trump. In other words, we can't push this guy around. This guy is not your traditional Republican who's going to bend and break. Now, he does it in that JD way with that smile and those cheeks. And, he's from Ohio and they're very nice in the Midwest. But they can sense real steel in his spine. So when I see how the left is afraid of JD, I'm like, well, if they're afraid of him, that's got to tell me something. No, the one that I really fear, if I can be honest with you, Lisa, and I want to get your take, because I hear where you're coming from, is if, God forbid, Rubio gets the nomination and not JD. Because I don't trust Rubio. I'm sorry. I'm going to, look, he's done a great job. He's been very good as Secretary of State. No question. No question. But I'll never forget the Gang of Eight. I'll never forget how he was for amnesty and so-called comprehensive immigration reform, and how enthusiastically he went out there and advocated for it. So I see him as a closet globalist. I see him tied to the establishment wing of the party. I know the establishment wing prefers him over JD, which is another reason why I like JD. So if Rubio gets the nomination, then I'm with you, Lisa. Then I'm like, we're going to get rolled again, because I think you can roll Rubio. Lisa, final word to you.
Me as well. And he is doing a great job as Secretary of State, which I'm very surprised because I wasn't happy with the pick myself. However, JD's very young. Usha, very young children. They've watched what happened to Trump in the last 8 years. They see what's happened in these 4 years. They took out one of his best friends, right? Charlie Kirk and JD were very, very, very close. And I'm not sure it's something that he would even consider doing, being so young, to be perfectly honest. Do I think he'd make a great president? I do. Do I think that Trump is setting the stage for JD? And I think that JD's so brilliant and so smart and so educated that he would do a great job. I just don't know if he was part of the swamp for about 15 minutes, so I don't worry about that. But I just worry about him being too conservative. See, the thing about Trump is he's not real. He's more conservative than any conservative.
No, you're right. No, look, Lisa, I think you put your finger on it. Trump, yes, he's a conservative. Yes, he's a nationalist. Yes, he's an economic patriot. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask the poll question one more time. Lot of interest, obviously, in this topic. It's a big topic. Everybody is talking about it. It's the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Should President Trump run for a third term in 2028? A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, WRKO.com/Kuhner, WRKO.com/Kuhner. Kuhner, Kuhner. And of course, I am very active on X. Last night I was lighting it up. You can vote via X, my handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhner. It looks like the no camp is starting to pull away. As the vote count stands right now, 34.2% yes, he should run for a third term. 65.8% no. Let's not quibble. Let's round it off. 34% yes, 66% no. So basically 1/3 of you believe he should, 2/3 of you believe he shouldn't. 617-266-6868. Keith in Ohio. Thanks for holding, Keith, and welcome.
Yeah, I would like to go over a couple of points, and you can ask me all the questions you think. Trump's plan, as I see it, is he's going to expose all their crimes, and then they're either going to retire, go to jail, or flee to someplace else. He'll secure the Congress and Senate with a MAGA supermajority. Then he'll be able to pass favorable laws for we the people, including exposing and ending the Fed, which will end taxes and, sorry, I need my glasses. An external revenue service and tariffs will take over. That will make everybody happy, even Democrats, if they don't have to pay taxes.
Well,
the third term,
Keith, hold on, if you don't mind, let me just weigh in on this, because you're raising a very, very important point. I think if you were to sit down with Trump in a living room and have a private conversation with him, he would say to you, Keith, yes, yes, yes. Would he like to personally get rid of the Federal Reserve? No question. He's openly said it. He'd like to get rid of income taxes. He thinks it's outdated, it's counterproductive, it's confiscatory. He'll give you every argument in the book, and he's right. And he would prefer some kind of a flat rate, or a national sales tax, or a consumption tax, or, as you put it, just as it was in the past, just a tariff. One big mother tariff, and that's how we primarily raise revenue. The problem is he doesn't have the votes. And I know you're saying, well, he wants a MAGA supermajority. He's not going to get a MAGA supermajority in 2026. What he needs to do is hold off the Democrats so they don't take back the House and the Senate. And if he can pick up 10, 15 seats in the House and maybe a couple of Senate seats, that would be huge, huge. Because then that means the left is truly getting defeated and getting crushed. And I think, look, what Trump, if your people are asking me, well, why is he setting the stage for JD so early? The reason why is very simple. He's not stupid. He knows if the Democrats come back to power, that James Carville is completely right. They are going to parade MAGA supporters, influencers, talk radio hosts, thought leaders. They are going to go after him. They may not shave their heads, but they're going to go after him, and they're going to go after Trump. They're going to go after him. They're going to go after his wife. They're going to go after his business. They're going to go after his family. They're not going to let go. They want him behind bars, and they'll make up any charge to go and get him. So what he needs is he needs someone who will win in 2028, keep the radical Democrats from power, A. B, keep the MAGA revolution, the Trump revolution going, and C, and this is the most important part, somebody who he can fully trust and he knows will have his back. Because now he's done his 2 terms. I mean, he may have influence via Mar-a-Lago and giving advice, but he's, he can't run again. So, and I think that's why he looks at everybody and look, his family's telling him, his sons are telling him, no one has your back more than J.D. Vance. No one can appeal to the heartland more than J.D. Vance. I mean, you're from Ohio, Keith. I mean, he's the son of Ohio. And just to everybody out there, just stand back for a second, okay? Because, we're in the Boston area, we're in the Northeast, we're in New England, and so we look at the country through a slightly different lens. But if you look at the country through Middle America, which is where most of the country is, and especially where Trump country is and MAGA country is, J.D. Vance is the perfect foil to Zoran Mamdani. J.D. Vance is the perfect foil to Kamala Harris, to Joe Biden, to Elizabeth Warren, to Gavin Newsom, to Pete Buttigieg. I don't care. Throw any Democrat you want out there. He's a patriot. He loves America. He's rock solid on the border and on illegal immigration. He's America first on trade and on manufacturing, which is huge in the Midwest. Huge. He's a genuine non-interventionist. He really doesn't want us in foreign wars. He truly is America first when it comes to foreign policy. And the other thing about him is he is brilliant. And I'm not just saying that he's a smart guy who makes smart decisions. Look how he argues circles around liberals. He will destroy anybody in debate. He will demolish the media. I mean, he'll dismantle them. He'll eviscerate them. So think J.D. Vance and then think this. Okay? Here. This is Joe Biden. This is now what they're throwing at Trump. This is what they're reduced to. So as Trump's numbers continue to go up, and as the Democrats' numbers continue to crater with the shutdown, Obama's not popping. Kamala with her book tour is turning into an absolute disaster. Gavin Newsom now is mired in scandal after scandal. His numbers are dropping. Literally, they have nobody now to go after. What, Chuck U. Schumer? He's going to get knocked off by AOC in a primary. Hakeem Jeffries, the country's blaming him and Schumer for the shutdown. So who do they roll out? There's Joey. I swear to you, Dementia Joe. So they rolled him out in Boston, of all places, at the Edward M. Kennedy Institute. This is the best the Democrats can do now. Roll cut 10, Mike.
Friends, I can't sugarcoat any of this. These are dark days. But we're one of the only countries in the world that time and again has come out of every crisis we faced stronger than we went into that crisis. Every one. And after half a century of watching this, sometimes move to the brink before finding our true compass again. I still believe we'll emerge.
Oh my God.
Stronger, wiser, more resilient, more just. So long as we keep the faith, remember who in God's name we are.
I mean, it's The Walking Dead with this guy. Seriously. I mean, it's sad. It's pathetic. And by the way, Mike was in my ear saying it's the same speech he gave for 4 years while president. It's the same dreck rehashed over and over. And this is what they consider inspirational. This is his, big climax. Roll cut 10A. Mike.
I'm over 50 years in elected public life.
Yeah.
This is the worst I've seen it.
Yeah.
It's time to get re-engaged. It's time to act. To fight like hell. There's no time to give up. It's time to get up. Get up now. Get up.
Yep. That's what they have. Now, I don't care. Put Biden, put Kamala, put Gavin, put Michelle Obama, I don't care. Put them all up. Mamdani, AOC, and there's JD. Look at the compare and contrast. It's over. Now they're saying he's a dictator because he wants to run. They say he's toying with the idea of running again for a third term in 2028. That's now the question everybody is asking. One of his top former advisors and still a very close ally of the president, Steve Bannon, in an interview with The Economist magazine, said that he wants Trump to run for a third term. And more importantly, he says he's working with people near the president who will make it happen. And that has sparked a wildfire of speculation in the media among Democrats who now say Trump may never leave office. 617-266-6868. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, you want to know why Vance's appeal Trump's appeal continues to grow, obviously, why his poll numbers keep rising, but also why Vance's appeal keeps growing. Because this is now the new face of the Democratic Party. This is, as we talked about yesterday, this is the man who now speaks for and represents the heart and soul of the party. A Muslim communist, a open jihadist, a Jew hater, and an anti-Semite who now says he's going to bring socialism to New York and he is going to chase money and the wealthy out of New York City. Listen now to Zohran Mamdani. It has now come out. And by the way, one of the appeals of J.D. Vance is his sincerity and his authenticity. Whatever you say about J.D., he's earnest and he's not a liar. He's not a liar. What you see is what you get. With Mamdani, he's now been caught in a major lie. Remember we talked about this yesterday, where he went on about how his poor aunt, she couldn't wear the hijab after 9/11 on the subway because all these dirty looks she was getting. And, oh, my God, it was the backlash, the anti-Muslim backlash. You want to talk about a stone-cold liar. Hat tip to the New York Post, they broke the story. His aunt, at the time of the 9/11 attacks and months afterwards, wasn't even in the United States. She was in Tanzania, in Africa. And not only was she in Tanzania, but she doesn't even wear a hijab. Listen now to Mamdani having to change his story about his aunt. Listen to this BSer. Roll cut 14. Mike.
So recently, in a recent address about Islamophobia, you referenced your aunt and some of the harassment she was facing post 9/11. Is that a blood relative?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I was speaking about my aunt. I was speaking about Zerafui, my father's cousin, who sadly passed away a few years ago. And for the takeaway from my more than 10-minute address about Islamophobia in this race and in this city to be the question of my aunt tells you everything about Andrew Cuomo and his inability to reckon with a crisis of his own.
Unbelievable. I mean, you lie to everybody's face, and suddenly it's like, the big takeaway is you guys should be talking about Islamophobia and how you all hate Muslims. Oh, my God, and we were the victims of 9/11, not the 3,000 dead. No, you lied about your aunt. She wasn't afraid to ride the subway because she wasn't even in New York City. She was on a freaking different continent, Tanzania. And by the way, she never wore a hijab, ever. She doesn't wear a hijab, you lying piece of you-know-what. Now, this is the scary thing, okay? I want to replay. This is what he said at a press conference. Now, remember, his mother, Mamdani's mother, is a director. She's, in fact, a world-famous Indian director. Very left-wing, by the way. She's basically a communist. He's a red diaper baby. But she's a famous director. And people close to Mamdani have said, you have to understand, he's really an actor. He's just playing a part. Watch the acting job. Now that you know the truth, So his father's cousin, this is apparently what he's talking about, which I don't believe him, by the way. Now, look at the emotion he puts into it. Look at the pregnant pauses. Look at him like, my aunt, she couldn't wear the hijab, for God's sake. Okay? Look at the way this guy lies. I mean, this is an Academy Award performance. Roll cut 14A. Mike.
I want to use this moment to speak to the Muslims of New York City. I want to speak to the memory of my aunt. Who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab.
Yeah, in her hijab. You know, look at him. He's choking back tears. He's holding back tears. He's choking back tears. It's too emotional. Now, if he can lie like this, and, you know, who uses their aunt to lie like this? What the hell else is he lying about? This is now the face of the Democratic Party. Again, contrast that with Trump, Mr. Authenticity. He is what he is. J.D. Vance, he is what he is. Let me just play one more cut because I want to go back to the blazing phone lines. Hakeem Jeffries. Hakeem, remember I said Kathy Hochul now kissed the ring? You've got Elizabeth Warren now kissed his ring. Bernie, obviously, AOC, they love the guy. But they're all lining up now. Kamala Harris, one after another. They're all kissing Mamdani's ring. Well, Schumer kissed his ring, and now Hakeem Jeffries has endorsed Mamdani, the House Minority Leader. Listen now to Speaker Mike Johnson. And I think, again, he does it in that lawyerly way of his. I wish he'd put a little more emotion when he speaks. But the content, he's 1,000% correct. The Democratic Party is no more. This is now a radical communist party. It is Mamdani, Bernie, and AOC's party. It's now official. Roll cut 13, Mike. 13, Mike. 1-3, Mike. 13.
There is no longer a place for centrists and moderates in their party. The candidate that they have endorsed, Mamdani, is somebody who we've talked about a lot from this podium. He's sympathized with Hamas and openly embraced anti-Semitic language. He has called to, quote, seize the means of production because he is a Marxist. He's called to abolish our borders, to abolish and end immigration enforcement, to defund the police, and to legalize prostitution, among a long list of hits that I could share with you. Zoran Mamdani is expected to take the helm of one of the most important cities in the world and the largest city in America. And he now has the full blessing of the Democrat leader in the House of Representatives. It is shocking. And that leader and all the other Democrats are going to co-own the consequences of what they do to America's largest city. Every reporter in this room should be asking every House Democrat individually whether they too agree with Hakeem's endorsement of the Marxist agenda. It's an extraordinary moment in the history of American politics, as this is not the kind of history that we need to be making. What we're witnessing is truly the end of the Democratic Party as we've known it.
Bingo. Again, the content is great. Could you put a little oomph behind it, man? A little feeling, a little, but anyway, it doesn't matter. The content is there. He's right. We're witnessing an historic moment. We're living in historic times. I'm telling you. In 50 years from now, historians are going to be writing the downfall and death of the Democratic Party. And we're watching it live. And that's what Mamdani now, his rise, that's the significance. The Democratic Party is dead. It's dead. And rising in its place is a Marxist Muslim party. A Marxist Muslim anarchist radical party. Now, this is why Trump's America First movement is poised to win election after election after election. Because the choice between Mamdani and Trump Trump wins every time. The choice between Mamdani and J.D. Vance, J.D. wins every time. Every time. So that's why, again, not to beat a dead horse, but to me, Trump, Vance is the perfect ticket, the perfect combination, the right moment, the right team for the right time. And so I keep going for 3 years, keep the MAGA revolution going, and then pass the baton off to JD. 8 years of a JD administration, and I'm telling you, the Democrats will never recover. They will never recover. 617-266-6868 is the number. Agree, disagree. And last quick point. It's almost like Trump and JD are the perfect foil for these guys. Because Trump reeks of patriotism. JD reeks of the heartland, middle America. And if you look at Mamdani, and you look at Bernie, and you look at AOC, and you look at Kamala Harris, I could go on and on. You look at Biden. It's like a circus freak show. No, really. It reeks of being un-American, of being extreme, of being radical. It's as if Antifa has taken over the Democratic Party. Now, this may play well in parts of New York. This may play well in the People's Republic of Massachusetts. This may play well in San Francisco and in parts of California and in Portland, Oregon, and in Seattle and in a couple in Chicago, obviously, in a couple of these blue pockets. But in 80 to 85% of the rest of the country, they look at someone like Trump and JD and they go, my God, this is America. They're normal. They're just freaking normal. So it's freak show versus normal. Normal wins every time. Craig in Canton. Agree, disagree. Craig in Canton. Thanks for holding, Craig, and welcome.
Kuhner, man, I just want to let you know I love you in a non-sexual way, my friend. You're a 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10.
Thank you.
I do have to say, Kuhner, if Trump were to run and be elected for a third term, I would. You ever see those old movies where they jump in the air and they kick their heels together twice? I'll tell you, I got to stretch. I'm becoming more chronological. I don't want to pull a muscle over here, but I would do that. It would be the funniest thing. Instead of the No Kings protests, I'd be walking around with my MAGA hat on going, hashtag that's my king. 3 terms. Let's make it 4.
Craig, let me ask you this. Do you think he will run for a third term? Or do you think he's just, he's trolling the Democrats? He's getting under their skin, getting inside their heads. And I got to say, politically, it's destroying them. I mean, they're going berserk. I mean, they're yelling, shouting, screaming, and you can see he's got a big smile on his face. It's like he's thrown them off their game. They're obsessed with him. And in the process, he's just getting his agenda through one after another. I mean, he really politically is he's outmaneuvering them at every turn. And he's inside their head. And Craig, I mean, I don't know if you follow sports or not, but you get inside your opponent's head, it's over. I mean, it's over. Craig, what say you?
I mean, I couldn't agree anymore. I mean, when you have a party that's voter-based, their biggest point is, their desire to vote on their right to kill unborn babies. It's like, I mean, it's not that hard to get into their heads, There's no substance there. They just go along with whatever the media says. And I would just love to hear the media say that. In all reality, he's not going to run again. He's just 100% trolling them. J.D. Vance is an excellent pick. And, when Trump can't retire, I mean, he's still going to be on the phone. I mean, Obama had 3 terms with Biden, but Trump's not going to be as involved like that. It's not going to be his term. It's going to be JD's, and that's what scares the Democrats.
And I think you're right, Craig. And I think Trump's still going to have a lot of influence, and he should. I think there's no question. So you're right. Trump, come on. Trump's not going to retire. You're dead on, Craig. But JD will be his own man. But come on, what better guy to call on the phone and say, hey, what should I do than Trump? It's going to be an unstoppable duo. I'm telling you, this thing could go on all the way to literally 2036. Craig, thank you so much for that call. Tom, speaking of Ohio, JD country, Tom in Ohio. Thanks for holding, Tom, and welcome.
Jeff, I am for the Buckeye all the way, baby.
Tom, before I get into, I want to ask you, obviously, your opinion on all this, but since you're in Ohio, how do people in the heartland view JD? Is he, I mean, I know when I was in Wisconsin, people I spoke to in Wisconsin anyway loved him. They saw him as a son of the Midwest. They really saw him as a man of the heartland, one of them. And that's why they were enthusiastic about him being on the ticket and being Trump's VP. Tom, does he still have that appeal and that popularity, at least to the people you talk to?
Yeah, Jeff, he's kind of the favored son status. JD was born in Middletown, grew up in a very impoverished area. I mean, you know the whole story of his family. To pull himself up from his bootstraps, go to the Marines, actually serve in the military, and then his pathway through to Harvard and obviously in the political spectrum. He's a solid individual. So I am with you all the way. As Trump has said, there's a number of deep bench people in the Republican Party, but I'm not a big fan of Rubio, Jeff. I think he's a neocon and he's not MAGA. I think people filled, different roles, and I think the role that he's in now is a good role, but I don't see him as vice presidential. And I'll tell you who I think, Jeff, would be an outstanding vice presidential candidate with JD, like-minded, about the same age, is Elise Stefanik. Now, what you run into is she's going to run for governor in 2026 against Hochul in New York. But if she doesn't win that governorship, I think she would be a perfect vice presidential candidate.
Interesting. Tom. Whoa, you gave me something to chew on. Tom, if you don't mind me asking, why not, I'm just curious, why not Tulsi Gabbard? Why not her as because I agree with you on Rubio. I think he is a neoconservative. And that's why I don't trust him. Now, he's excellent in his job now, but I don't want him a heartbeat away from the presidency. I'm with you, Tom. I'd rather have someone else be the VP. I personally like Tulsi, but I'd like to hear why Stefanik and not Tulsi Gabbard. I'm just curious.
No, Tulsi's doing a great job. And again, I go back to people get slotted into roles where they're successful. Let's face it, Jeff, she was a Democrat. She was, not a real moonbat liberal, but she was a Democrat. Stefanik has always been a Republican and MAGA. And I think that if Tulsi gets put into in the next administration, I'd put her as CIA director or over the FBI or something like that.
Interesting.
I would stick her in those roles because I think she is like a pit bull in that. But I think also, Jeff, the reason I say Stefanik is, we don't need another bunch of old white guys, pardon my expression. We need to infuse a little bit of, quote, diversity into the party. And Stefanik, will have firsthand experience with Mamdani. He'll try to ruin that state and that city, and she'll be able to deflect all the stuff that he's going to try to do over the next couple of years.
Best audience in the business. I'm telling you. Tom, I like it. Very compelling argument. Listen, I've seen Elise many times. She's very smart, very good, savvy, smart, really good counterpuncher. She's articulate. She's gutsy. I could see it. Tom, I could really see it. Tom, great call. Thank you for that call. And when he said, Tulsi as FBI director or Tulsi as CIA director, I'd love it. Oh, would I love it. Oh, I'm getting chills. I'm serious. Oh, man. You want to talk about a sledgehammer to the deep state. Oh. Robert in Maine. Thanks for holding, Robert, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Can you hear me okay, buddy?
I can hear you, Robert. Can you hear me?
Yes. Listen, your callers, they really are the best of the business.
Aren't they incredible? Huh? So good.
It's amazing. And the last 5 or 6, but the last 4, Jake and Bob and Lisa and Todd, I mean, and the way you help to draw them out and end up with a point that's a little bit different from the point they called in on, but not much, and basically amplifies the idea. But I do want to make a statement that I think hasn't been touched on. It's been sort of graced at a little bit, but not really touched on, and that is
Robert. Can you do me a favor? I don't want to rush you. Please hang on. 66-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to go right back to Robert in Maine. Trust me when I tell you this. Please trust me. I've got a story for you right after the break. Okay, about 9:30-ish when we come back. You're going to want to hear this. You're going to want to hear this. But first, should Trump run for a third term in 2028? Steve Bannon not only says yes, he says he's working with people close to President Trump, not with President Trump, but close to him, that are in the process of making it happen. Will it happen? Should it happen? Robert in Maine, please pick up where you left off.
Okay, Jeff, I'll make this short because it sounds like you got something pretty important to tell us, most of which is always true. But anyway, listen, just the way J.D. Vance puts the fear of God into the knuckleheads on the other side of things, even your callers like the guy from Sudbury, he gets people thinking when they hear that crazy nonsense. And what that does is it bolsters it. It makes your message and other similar MAGA messages stronger. But let me bring my main point to the floor. We live in a dangerous world, and we need statesmanship, Jeff. And before you mentioned that, Trump has a certain je ne sais pas quoi about him, and I think he does. Look at the leaders of the world that he has to deal with. And you just can't imagine Harris dealing with some of these knuckleheads out there. Just think about it. So here's the thing. I don't know where it came from, but I suspect, and I could text you on this sometime because I don't want to take up too much time here, but I suspect that it has to do with the family dynamics Trump grew up in. Plus, he's brilliant up too, of course, but, alcoholic brother, dad who had his own challenges and all, and then having to deal with some of those mob people that ran the unions to build his companies and his constructions in Manhattan. Can you imagine? He is just... We live in a dangerous time, and we need statesmanship. And I'm not even sure if I can tell you what it is about his statesmanship, but boy, I know it works. And I just love the guy in a non-sexual way. I just love the guy, and I trust him. I trust him to deal with these people that could bring atomic bombs on top of our head. That's my main message.
Robert, look, I couldn't agree with you more. Look, Xi respects him. Xi doesn't respect anybody. He respects him. A little rocket man in North Korea respects him. He doesn't respect anybody. Putin has admitted he respects Trump. Putin has admitted repeatedly in public that if Trump was in office, say they hadn't stolen the election, right, in 2020, and he was in office from 2020 to 2024 instead of Biden, he goes, I never would have invaded Ukraine. He openly admitted it. And I think you're really onto something, Robert. I think, look, you just quickly look at his personal bio, his biography. Trump is a self-made man. He has the confidence of a self-made man. He's a multi-billionaire in one of the most cutthroat businesses in the world, construction. And not just construction and real estate, New York real estate, which anybody will tell you is maybe the most ruthless and cutthroat of them all. And he had to face down mobsters who controlled the unions. I mean, that's where he cut his teeth. So people can sense with Trump. He's a tough guy. Look, I've said it before and I'll say it again. No one else could have beaten Hillary Clinton in 2016. Not because they didn't have better ideas. Forgive me. Not that they didn't have better ideas, which they did, or better policies, which they did, or were better speakers or orators, which they were, because nobody could go into the gutter with her and beat her at her own game. And that's what Trump did. Who else? I mean, seriously, after everything he endured under Biden, who would have recovered 91 indictments, raiding his home, going through his wife's underwear, harassing his business? I think they've gone after his son, Eric Trump. It's some ridiculous number. What is it, 112 subpoenas? Don't quote me on that, but it's definitely over 100 subpoenas. They tried to bankrupt him. They threatened his family. They tried to put, they shot him in the head. I mean, they missed by a millimeter, but I mean, he gets shot in the ear. Now, I'm telling you, I'm being serious. I get shot in the ear giving a speech. I'm not getting up saying, fight, fight, fight. I'm saying, get me the hell out of here. There's blood coming down my ear. I'm thinking, oh my God, am I dead? Am I dead? Am I dead? That's what I'm thinking. No, he gets right back up. Fight, fight, fight. And the other thing, and you got to read Selena Zito's book on it, because it's the best book on the assassination attempt. Not only does he get up and say, fight, 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 but the hilarious part is, you've got all these Secret Service agents on top of him, and he's still the boss. He's telling him, get my shoes. Because I guess when he went down, the way they kind of brought him down, so like his shoes came off, and he's like, no, you're not going to take me out of here. First, you get my shoes. Get my shoes. So what I'm saying is, to have that kind of poise, I mean, there's blood dripping down. He doesn't know that it's just his ear. Your neck could have been shot. Your head could have been shot. You don't know. There's blood everywhere. But to be that calm, that resilient, that tough, that poised, that cool, under that kind of incredible circumstance, under fire, literally under fire. Now, and then there was a second assassination attempt. Now, he doesn't change his schedule. He's not afraid. He doesn't back down. He hasn't given down. He hasn't given up an inch. The man is a warrior. He's a warrior. And that, I think Putin has even said it. He goes, this guy's one tough SOB. I mean, the Ayatollahs are like, don't mess with this guy. So I think that's what Trump brings to the table. And that's what makes him, honestly, he is the most effective president in my lifetime. There is no question about it. No question about it. Just two very, very quick points before I get to the big story. This is from Kyle on Messenger, and he makes a very interesting point. I touched on it earlier, but it's just something for everybody to consider, just to chew on, just to munch on. Jeff, I would consider a Trump third term if he was in his 60s, but my father died with dementia. At 80, he was as sharp as ever, but at 82, he couldn't even remember his grandchildren. Now, I'm not saying Trump will have the same fate, but to ignore age is dangerous. And what happened to my father, well, it was like overnight fast. And I think that is a valid point. Once you start getting into your 80s, and I know people who are very sharp, frankly, into their 90s, even, Margot, if she's listening, she's over 100 now. But I've seen it myself. They're fine. They're in their 80s. They're fine. And then suddenly it's quick. It's quick. 3 months, 6 months, and you can see the decline. So when you're getting now to, he's 82 in 2028, on the third term, now you're looking at 86. I agree with Kyle. I think now you're getting a little dangerous. So just an interesting point to consider. Now, secondly, I didn't touch on it in the show, but it has to be said because I want to go off of what Robert in Maine said about Trump and his leadership. Earlier today, Trump visited a U.S. aircraft carrier in the Pacific, right near Japan, off of Japan. And when he visited the aircraft carrier, you have to see the video. I've never seen sailors show this kind of support and open pride and patriotism for a commander-in-chief as they did for Donald Trump. And, you know, there was patriotic music blasting in the background and the sailors waving flags, high-fiving Trump, shaking his hand. You could feel that America is back. You could feel the pride is back, the patriotism is back, the morale is back, the love of country is back. This is not Biden's military. This is not Obama's military. And I thought Sandy made a great point in our pre-show meeting where she said, you know, first of all, it's moving. When you see it, you have tears in your eyes. But it's also, it's for international consumption. Trump said, I want the cameras there. The Japanese media were there. The Chinese media were there. Obviously, the American media was there. The European media was there. That was a signal deliberately sent to the Russians, to the Chinese, to the Iranians. Yeah, this is not Biden in office. Look at this modern aircraft carrier we're on. The thing is huge. I mean, it's powerful. Frankly, it looks invincible. Look at these sailors. We're all one now. We all bleed red, white, and blue. Don't mess with the USA. And so what I'm telling you is it's no accident that this was done in Asia, literally days before he's to meet with Chinese strongman Xi Jinping. So Trump is throwing down the gauntlet, and he's throwing it down hard. Now, as for the big story, it kind of was leaking a little bit yesterday. There were some parts of it that dribbled out. But now we have full confirmation. Everything has now come through. So, and I'll give you the short of it, not the long of it. We can talk about it more tomorrow or certainly on Thursday or Friday. But here it is. Bombshell. Zoran Mamdani is now being directly funded by George Soros and Islamic activist donors. And in particular, he has received directly $2.9 million from Soros. Directly. But there's much more. And this is why it's important. Soros and his organization have now funneled over $37 million to guarantee Zoran Mamdani win the primary against Cuomo and now to win the mayor's race in New York. Apparently now, through recently released records, this is irrefutable. Soros, through his Open Society Foundation, has been funneling $37 million, my God, to an outfit. Now, by the way, this outfit is coming to Massachusetts. They're in Mass now. Remember this name. This is a very important name. They're a Marxist, far left. They're a communist organization. It's called the Working Families Party. And so 37 million was sent to the Working Families Party and at least 9 other far left-wing organizations and that have been backing Mamdani. That's why he's got all of this endless money. He's running ad after ad on TV, ad after ad on radio. His posters are everywhere. He's got activists on the ground. They are going mailbox to mailbox, precinct to precinct. It's an all-out blitz. He is drowning in Soros cash. According now, furthermore, the Working Families Party received $23.7 million from Soros, just through Soros alone. There were other NGOs that received more than $13.9 million. Let's round it off. $14 million. Now, why is this important? Because what it shows is 2 things. Number one, what we've all suspected has now been completely confirmed. Mamdani is Soros's puppet. Literally, he's Soros's puppet. Soros owns him, lock, stock, and barrel. He's a cat's paw an agent of George Soros. And furthermore, and look it up, please don't take my word for it. Go to the Working Families Party. See what they stand for. You know when Mamdani's talked about seizing the means of production? That's what the Working Families Party stands for. Abolishing private property? That's what the Working Families Party stands for. Literally abolishing and obliterating the quote-unquote rich. That's what they stand for. Dismantling the police, not just defunding, dismantle, no police. That's what they stand for. Abolishing all prisons. That's what they stand for. In other words, the Working Families Party is an open communist Marxist organization. In fact, I don't know how much more Marxist or communist. I'm talking Lenin. I'm talking direct Communist Manifesto, Karl Marx. And that's who's been bankrolling his campaign. Soros gives it to the Working Families Party and other NGOs. And through them, they funnel the money, they launder the money straight into Mamdani. Now, think about this. Okay? Trust me, this is going to be a huge scandal. If there's an honest media, this could finish him. What's your limit to donate to a campaign? $2,000. What's my limit? $2,000. So for us ordinary peasants, for us ordinary peons, you can't give more than $2,000. That's your limit. So how come George Soros gets to give this clown, this communist clown, $37 million? $37 million from one man. Because they've created this middleman of these left-wing NGOs and parties that then secretly funnel the money to circumvent campaign finance laws. And by the way, you're for the people? So the people can only give $2,000. But you are, by the way, and he rails against the rich, wealthy, and billionaires as he's literally taking tens and tens of millions from billionaires. George Soros being numero uno. He's a puppet of globalist, socialist billionaires. And more than that, he's taking direct money now from an open communist Marxist organization. I don't know what. And by the way, check out what they think about Israel and the Jews. The Working Families Party. Just take a look. Take a look. There are rabbis now coming out in favor of Mamdani, if you can believe it. Mel in New York. Thanks for holding, Mel. And as always, my friend, welcome.
Yes, good morning, Jeff. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure.
And yes. Let me see. I don't know if I may have you. Yeah. I had to get you off the speaker. Yeah. Jeff, I know things in regards to Elise Stefanik through Dr. Robert Malone Institute. On his website, if you scroll down to where it says Matters, Ethic Matters, it has a list of graduates from the WEF, a list of U.S. politicians. On that list, you're going to be surprised who you'll find. She's one of them.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Go to the Malone Institute website.
Okay, Robert, I know Robert Malone. He's a very good man. I trust him. So you're saying go to his website, and he has a list of people who graduated from the Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum, and you're saying that Elise Stefanik is on that list, Mel?
There's several other U.S. representatives on that list, too. And I just, it took me by surprise, but, like you said, Dr. Robert Malone, he's
No, he's solid. He's a straight shooter. Mel, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude. Literally, you're breaking up on us. We can barely hear you. Mel, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at the website. I'm going to try to reach out to Stefanik's people, see what she has to say. I'm surprised, so I want to confirm this, but I'm definitely going to look into it. And I want to thank you for pointing that out. That needs to be pursued. Mel, thank you again. I appreciate it. Eric in Plymouth, thanks for holding, Eric, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Eric.
I know
we just lost Eric. Do you know what happened there, Mike? Or was that our end, or was that Eric? Okay, so that was on Eric's end. Eric, something happened, but please call us back, and we'll try to put you on. Anthony in Michigan, thanks for holding, Anthony, and welcome.
Dr. Kuhner, a blessing as always. Time is short. Hey, well, all this hullabaloo is going on about Trump possibly running a third term. Here's some of the things that are going on in the background. So he goes to the Pacific Rim. He wraps up rare earths with Australia and all these Pacific Rim people. And we've got at least one U.S. Uranium manufacturer that also has them. We have a major nuclear power player that's owned right now by two companies. By executive order, they're going to get some money to promote their large power plants, and they're going to do another IPO spinoff. The X-Bat was unveiled, a vertically take-off stealth fighter type thing that can go out and send missiles out to the bad guys. And you look at all that, so NBC is going to talk about this stuff. You know, oh, he's going to run again when all this good stuff is going on. Jeff, it's the most wonderful bait and switch. Now, in terms of Trump running in 2028, we're missing it. He has got them on the run. Like I said, with the bait and switch, I think it's Eric.
Oh, you think he'll endorse or push Eric Trump to be the nominee in 2028?
Yes, you don't remember. I thought Jared was 46, and for a host of reasons that didn't happen. Dawn's a loose cannon. Ivanka, she's now being a mom, and I'm looking at this going, he's really level-headed and has chops. I think we're being played.
Now, I'm just curious, Anthony, why not just go with JD?
Keep it in the family, so to speak. I mean, don't get me wrong. JD, he trusts his kids. Don't get me wrong, JD's an Ohio guy. I'm north of Ohio, not that far from the border. I get you went to school there. You get the good-natured, raw stock of Americana of Ohioans. He's got it, totally. But, I don't know. There's just something in my gut telling me.
You're saying blood is thicker than water. Blood is blood. That's interesting, Anthony. That's very interesting. I didn't even think about it. Anthony, thank you very much for that call. And people in Ohio and the Midwest generally, salt of the earth. He's completely right. By the way, Trump has now inked a big trade deal with Japan, and they're going to buy a lot of our weapons as well. So he's making deal after deal. All right, we got Eric back. Eric, I hate to do this to you. 1 minute. The floor is yours. Go.
you, Jeff. Yeah, it's marvelous. Trump peace with prosperity. And Obama's had plenty of terms. Okay? I'd say Bush 1, 2, Clinton's, and the Bidens, and still going on with Donnie. And, yeah, we got to continue to for peace and prosperity.
Eric, would you like to see Trump run for a third term? Mike, you couldn't let the man answer. Mike, I mean, what the hell is this? You know, Mike, I got to tell you, I'm thinking of holding a No Kings March rally myself against you, for God's sake.